mother was unwell and he needed help. But when he sat before Goddess Kali, he was completely absorbed in her presence. And yet, he could not bring himself to ask for anything. Each time, he returned empty-handed. He told Sri Ramakrishna, I came back empty-handed. I didn't ask for anything. To stand before the divine goddess and not be able to ask for anything. That moment, that experience, lit a flame inside him. There was a spark in his life. And from that came the spirit of giving. I believe that perhaps that small incident in Vivekananda's life left an impression on me too. The thought of what can I give to the world? Maybe true contentment comes from giving. If my heart is only filled with the hunger to receive, that hunger will never end. And within that realization came the idea of Shiva and living beings as one. If you wish to serve Shiva, serve all living beings. Recognize the unity between the divine and the living. True non-duality is experienced through this realization. I would often lose myself in such thoughts, my mind naturally drifting in that direction. I remember an incident in the neighborhood where we lived, just outside. There was a Lord Shiva temple. One day a saint came to stay there. So that saint used to engage in meditation and spiritual practices. I started feeling drawn to him, thinking perhaps he possessed some spiritual energy. I had only read about Swami Vivekananda, never seen such figures in real life. During Navratri, he was fasting, and he had placed sorghum grains on his hand, a common tradition in our country. In a way, sprouting seeds on your palms and sleeping like that for 9 or 10 days. It was a kind of spiritual vow, and this saint was observing it. During those same days, my maternal uncle's family was preparing for my aunt's wedding. Everyone from my home was going to my uncle's house for the wedding. Now, for any child visiting an uncle's house is always exciting. But I told my family, I'm not going, I'll stay here. And I will take care of Swamiji. Since he has these grains on his hand, he can't eat or drink. So I will take care of him. So as a child, I chose not to attend the wedding. I stayed back, serving Swamiji instead. Somehow my mind was naturally drawn in that direction. At times, whenever soldiers from my village came home during their holidays, they would walk around in their uniforms with such pride. I would run behind them all day thinking, look at them, they are serving the nation. So, there was always a strong feeling inside me to do something meaningful. I didn't fully understand what it would be, and I didn't have a roadmap. There was a hunger within me, a deep longing to understand life, to explore its meaning. So I just set out and began the journey. During my time in the mission, I came across remarkable saints. They showered me with love and blessings. Among them, I formed a special bond with Swami Atmasthananji. He lived for nearly 100 years, a life full of wisdom and service. In his final years, I deeply wished for him to stay with me at the Prime Minister's residence. But his responsibilities were vast, and he couldn't come. However, back when I was Chief Minister, he used to visit, and I was fortunate to receive his blessings and guidance. He once looked at me and said, why have you come here? You have a greater purpose to fulfill. Is your priority your own well-being, or is it the welfare of society? Whatever Swami Vivekananda said was for the betterment of society. He said you are meant to serve others. So I remember feeling a bit disheartened at that moment. I had come seeking guidance, but all I got were words. So I continued on my journey, wandering from place to place. I spent time in the Himalayas, embracing the solitude of the mountains. I met many remarkable individuals along the way. Some were great ascetics, people who had renounced everything, but still, my mind remained restless. Perhaps it was my age of curiosity, of wanting to learn, to understand. It was a new experience, a world shaped by the mountains, by ice, by the towering snow-covered peaks. But all of this played a huge role in shaping me. It strengthened me from within and enabled me to discover my inner power. Practicing meditation, waking up in the sacred pre-dawn hours, bathing in the cold, serving people with devotion, and naturally tending to elderly saints became a seamless part of who I was. Once a natural calamity led to helping the villagers. So these were the saints and spiritual masters with whom I stayed from time to time. I never remained in one place for long. I kept moving, constantly wandering. That was the kind of life I lived.
And for people who don't know, that moment in the Ramakrishna Mission Ashram with the monks you mentioned, he helped steer you towards a life of service. So there's another possible life that could have been where you take sannyasa, you give away everything, and you're a monk. So we could have had a monk Narendra Modi, a Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and he helped you take the decision to live a life of service at every scale.
From the outside, people may call me a leader. Some call me the Prime Minister. Others call me the Chief Minister, and that's how they see me from their perspective. But deep within there is only an unwavering spiritual commitment. The Modi, who lovingly helped his mother care for children during their treatments, tending to them with patience and compassion. The Modi who wandered through the Himalayas, and the Modi who now works from this seat of responsibility, they are all tied together by the same inner consistency. Every action is dedicated to serving. Every action is dedicated to serving others. People may see a stark difference between a saint and a leader, but to me there is no real difference. Yes, but to me there is no real difference. Yes, the attire changes, words spoken throughout the day shift, evolves, but the core of my being remains unchanged, carrying out every responsibility with the same sense of calm focus and dedication.
Another part of your life of who you are is you've spoken your whole Another part of your life of who you are is you've spoken your whole life about putting your nation of India above all else. When you were 8, you joined the RSS, which espouses the idea of Hindu nationalism. Can you tell me about RSS and what impact they had on who you are and the development of your political ideas?
Ever since childhood, I always had the habit of staying engaged in something or the other. I remember there was a man named Makoshi. I don't quite recall his full name. I think he was part of the service group, Makoshi Soni or something like that. He used to carry a small drum-like instrument called a tambourine with him. And he used to sing patriotic songs in his deep, powerful voice. Whenever he came to our village, he would hold programs in different places. I would run after him like a crazy fan just to listen to his songs. I would spend entire night listening to their patriotic songs. I enjoyed it. I don't even know why, but I just did. In our village, there was a branch of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, where we played sports and sang patriotic songs. Something about those songs touched me deeply. They stirred something inside me. And that's how I eventually became part of the RSS. One of the core values that were instilled in us at RSS was, whatever you do, do it with a purpose. Even while studying, study with the goal of learning enough to contribute to the nation. Even when you exercise, do it with the purpose of strengthening your body to serve the nation. This is what we were taught. And today, RSS is a massive organization. It is now nearing its 100th anniversary. Such a massive volunteer organization likely doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. Millions of people are connected to it. But understanding RSS is not that simple. One must make an effort to truly grasp the nature of its work. More than anything, the RSS provides you with a clear direction toward what can truly be called a purpose in life. Secondly, the nation is everything, and serving the people is akin to serving God. This is what has been said since the Vedic era, what our sages have said, what Vivekananda said, and what the RSS echoes. A volunteer is told that the inspiration he gains from RSS in our session or wearing the uniform. What matters is what you do for society. And today, inspired by that spirit, many initiatives are thriving. Like some volunteers established an organization called Seva Bharati. This organization serves the slums and settlements where the poorest people live, which they call service communities. To my knowledge, they run approximately 125,000 service projects without any government assistance, solely through community support. They spend time there, teach the children, care for their health, instill good values, and work towards improving cleanliness in these communities. Running 125,000 social service projects is no small feat. Similarly, some volunteers nurtured by RSS are dedicated to serving tribal communities through Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram. They live among the tribal people working for their welfare. They have established over 70,000 one-teacher schools in remote tribal regions. There are also some people in America who show their support for this and contribute donation dollars. And they say, skip a Coca-Cola this month, don't drink Coca-Cola, and donate that money to one teacher school instead. Now imagine 70,000 one teacher schools dedicated to educating tribal children. Some volunteers have founded Vidya Bharati to revolutionize education. Today they run nearly 25,000 schools, educating around 3 million students. And I believe that millions of students have benefited from this initiative, receiving quality education at an incredibly low cost. Alongside education, values are prioritized and students remain grounded, learning skills so they don't become a burden on society. That is, in every aspect of life, whether it's women, youth, or even laborers, the RSS has played a role. In terms of membership size, if I may say so, we have the Indian Labor Union. It has around 50,000 unions with millions of members across the country. Perhaps in terms of scale, there is no bigger labor union in the world. But what's interesting is the approach they take. Historically, leftist ideologies have fueled labor movements worldwide. And what has been their slogan? Workers of the world, unite. The message was clear: unite first, and then we'll deal with everything else. But what do the labor unions run by RSS-trained volunteers believe in? They say, workers unite the world. Others say, workers of the world unite, and we say, workers unite the world. It may seem like just a small shift in words, but it represents a huge ideological transformation. The volunteers who come from the RSS follow their own interest, nature, and inclination. And in doing so, they strengthen and promote these kinds of activities. When you observe these initiatives, you'll see how Over the past 100 years, the RSS has dedicated itself with the discipline and devotion of a seeker, staying away from the glare of mainstream attention. I feel blessed to gain life's values from such a sacred organization. RSS, I found a life of purpose. Then I was fortunate to spend some time among the saints, which gave me a strong spiritual foundation. I found discipline and a life of purpose, and through the guidance of saints, I gained spiritual grounding. Swami Atmastananda and others like him have held my hand throughout my journey, constantly guiding me at every step. The teachings of Ramakrishna Mission, Swami Vivekananda, and the service-driven philosophy of the RSS have played a crucial role in shaping me.
But they've also helped push the idea of India. What is the idea that unifies India? What is India as a nation? What is the foundational idea that unites all these disparate worlds and communities and cultures? What would it be?
Look, India is a cultural identity. It is a civilization that dates back thousands of years. Consider the vastness of India. Over 100 languages, thousands of dialects. India is so diverse that we have a saying that every 20 miles the language changes. Customs change, cuisine changes, even clothing styles shift from region to region, from the south to the north. You will see immense diversity across the country. But if you dig a little deeper, you will find a common thread. For example, the stories of Lord Ram can be heard everywhere in India. His name echoes in every corner of the country. But if you look closely, from Tamil Nadu to Jammu and Kashmir, you will always find people whose names include Ram in some form. In Gujarat, he might be called Ram Bhai. In Chandra. And in Maharashtra, Ram Bhau. This unique cultural bond is what unites India as one civilization. Take something as simple as bathing in water. We have a ritual where all the rivers of India are remembered. They chant, I am bathing with the waters of all these rivers. Ganga, Godavari, Saraswati, Narmada, Sindhu, Kaveri. It's a sentiment that unites a nation. And we have a long tradition of making such resolutions at the beginning of important events and rituals. And the resolution itself can present a historical record. And in so doing, serve as a way of collecting and preserving historical data. It has been an incredibly unique system, guided meticulously by our scriptures. When someone makes a resolution, performs a puja, or even during weddings, we start by invoking the entire universe, beginning with Jambudweep, Bharat Khand, Aryavrat, and gradually narrow it down to the village, then mentioning, and finally, we invoke the family deity. This is still alive, happening daily in every corner of India. But sadly, the Western and global models began viewing nations only as administrative systems. India, however, has had a variety of administrative systems throughout history. Many systems were fragmented, scattered, and varied across regions. Kings and rulers were numerous. But India's unity lay in cultural bonds. Pilgrimage traditions played a key role in preserving this unity. Shankaracharya established the 4 pilgrimage sites. Even today, millions of people travel from one place to another for pilgrimage. In Kashi, you will find people who bring water from Rameshwaram to Kashi and take water from Kashi to Ram. Even if you will find so many across the country that you can't even
creation of modern India. Along with Mahatma Gandhi is one of the most important humans to have ever lived, but certainly one of the most important humans to the history of India. What do you admire about Mahatma Gandhi?
As I had mentioned before, I was born in Gujarat, and Gujarati is my mother tongue. Mahatma Gandhi was also born in Gujarat. His native language was Gujarati too. He pursued a career as an attorney and lived overseas for several years. He had plenty of great opportunities, but the deep sense of duty within him, along with the values instilled by his family, led him to give up all comforts and devote his life to serving the people of India. He joined the struggle for India's independence, and to this day, he continues to deeply influence the life of every Indian in some way. Mahatma Gandhi tried to live by his principles and practice what he preached. For example, he strongly advocated for cleanliness and practiced it himself. And he made it a point to discuss cleanliness wherever he went. Another key factor to consider is India's fight for independence. India was ruled by the Mughals, the British, and several other foreign powers. Despite being bound by the shackles of colonial rule for centuries, the flame of independence burned brightly. In every corner and nook of India, never fading, always fueling the desire for freedom. Millions of people sacrificed their lives so the light of freedom could shine on India. They laid down their lives for freedom, sacrificing their youth behind prison walls. Mahatma Gandhi also fought for India's independence, but in his own way. Indeed, the other freedom fighters were brave warriors, sons of Mother India. They came, they fought, and their martyrdom immortalized them. And they did indeed have a lasting impact. But it was Mahatma Gandhi who awakened the nation, leading a mass movement fueled by truth. And he wove even a sweeper into the very fabric of the freedom struggle. He told teachers their work was part of the freedom struggle. He told the people spinning thread and weaving clothes they were freedom fighters. He told those tending to lepers that their service was a step toward India's freedom. He viewed every task as a vital thread in the fabric of India's independence movement. And this transformed India's common man into a soldier in the quest for freedom. Gandhi forged a mass movement so immense that the British could never fully grasp it. The British never imagined that a pinch of salt from the Dandi March could spark a massive revolution, and he made it happen. And his life, presence, style, mannerisms, all left a profound impact. And I have seen many of his stories evolve into timeless legends. I recall an incident from a roundtable conference. Yeah, I believe he was attending a roundtable conference. He was supposed to meet King George at the Buckingham Palace, draped in his breechcloth. Mahatma Gandhi made his way to the palace. Many people were amazed that he had showed up in that attire to meet the king. Gandhi remarked he didn't need to wear a lot of clothes. He said, "Your king is wearing enough clothes for the both of us." This was the whimsical charm of his nature. Mahatma Gandhi possessed many remarkable qualities. His call for unity and recognition of the people's strength still resonates with me. In everything I do, I strive to include the common man and to ensure for the participation of as many as possible. I don't believe in leaving everything to the government. I am a firm believer in the power of social change.
So he was probably one of the greatest leaders of the 20th century. You are one of the greatest leaders of the 21st century. Those two centuries are very different. And you have been masterful in the game, in the art of geopolitics. So let me ask you, you have found a balance. So when negotiating on the world stage with super powerful nations, feared, it seems like you are a masterclass of being loved by everybody, but everybody knows and feels the strength, but finding that balance. Can you speak to that balance?
First and foremost, I don't think this is a fair comparison. Mahatma Gandhi wasn't just a 20th century leader. His relevance transcends centuries. Mahatma Gandhi's legacy will last for centuries to come, and he remains relevant to date. As far as I am concerned, I have a responsibility to fulfill. Yet, the weight of that responsibility pales in comparison to my country. I am nowhere near as great as my country, and my strength lies not in my name, but in the backing of 1.4 billion Indians and thousands of years of timeless culture and heritage. So wherever I go, I carry with me thousands of years of Vedic tradition, the timeless teachings of Swami Vivekananda, dreams and aspirations of 1.4 billion Indians. When I shake hands with a world leader, it's not Modi, but 1.4 billion Indians doing so. So this isn't my strength at all. It is rather the strength of India. You see, I recall something that happened all the way back in 2013. It was when my party declared I would be their prime ministerial candidate. My critics often tried to corner me on one point. It became a topic of widespread discussion. Modi is nothing more than a state leader. What does he know of foreign policy? Does he even understand global geopolitics? This was on everyone's lips. And I was asked this question in every interview. I gave a very well thought out answer at the time. I said, I won't lay out my entire foreign policy in an interview, nor is it needed. That said, India will neither allow itself to be looked down upon, nor will it ever look up to anyone. India will now see eye to eye with her counterparts. This was my belief in 2013, and it still lies at the heart of my foreign policy. For me, the country always comes first. However, to belittle someone or speaking ill of others is neither part of my cultural values nor my traditions. Moreover, our culture upholds and advocates for the welfare of mankind. India has always championed the ideas of global peace and brotherhood. For centuries, we have envisioned the world as one big family. Our noble ancestors envisaged the welfare of the whole world and universe. And that's why you must have noticed the nature of our conversation, as well as the ideas that I have presented on the global stage, which are rooted in respect and positivity. For example, I spoke about the environment in one of my speeches. I proposed the concept of one sun, one world, one grid. During the COVID pandemic, I delivered a speech at the G20 summit, I put forth the vision of one health, where humans and nature would live in harmony. And I have always worked towards this. We hosted the G20 summit with the motto, One Earth, One Family, One Future. We have inherited this timeless wisdom, and it's our duty to share it with the world. To give you an example, I have advocated for embracing renewable energy. International Solar Alliance with the motto, One Sun, One World, One Grid. Even when it comes to global health care, One Earth Health, this initiative extends not to humans, but also to all flora and fauna. I have always to initiate efforts that foster global well-being. And the global community needs to join hands to accomplish that. We must also understand that Earth has become one small village today. No one can thrive in isolation. We all depend upon one another. No one is by themselves. That is why we must learn to synchronize with everyone. And everyone else must learn to synchronize with you. That's the only way to propel forward. Nations like the United Nations came in after World War. But they failed to evolve. An inability to adapt sparked a global debate on their relevance.
You have spoken about, you have the experience, you have the skill, you have the geopolitical leverage to be the biggest peacemaker in the world today, on the world stage, and there's several wars going on. Can you maybe explain how you approach the process of making peace, helping make peace between two warring nations? For example, Russia and Ukraine.
Well, I represent the country. That is the land of Lord Buddha. I represent the country that is the land of Gandhi. These are the great souls whose teaching, actions, and behavior are entirely dedicated to peace. And that is why, culturally and historically, our background is so strong that whenever we speak of peace, the world listens to us. Because India is the land of Gautam Buddha and Mahatma Gandhi, and Indians aren't hardwired to espouse strife and conflict. We espouse harmony instead. We seek neither to wage war against nature, nor to foster strife among nations. We stand for peace, and wherever we can act as peacemakers, we have gladly embraced that responsibility. Returning to your example, I have a close relationship with Russia and Ukraine alike. I can sit with President Putin and say that this is not the time for war. And I can also tell President Zelensky in a friendly way that, brother, regardless of how many people stand with you in the world, there will never be a resolution on the battlefield. The resolution will only come when both Ukraine and Russia come to the negotiating table. Ukraine may hold countless discussions with their allies, but it will bear no fruit. Discussions must include both parties instead. Initially, it was challenging to find peace, but now the current situation presents an opportunity for meaningful and productive talks between Ukraine and Russia. There has been a lot of suffering. Even the global south has suffered. The world has been grappling with a food, fuel, and fertilizer crisis. So, the global community should unite in the pursuit of peace. As for me, I have always maintained that I stand with peace. I am not neutral. I have a stance, and that is peace. And peace is what I strive for.
Another difficult, historic relationship and conflict is between India and Pakistan. So it's one of the most tense conflicts in the world. Two nuclear powers with strong ideological differences. You are a great peacemaker. Looking out into the future as a visionary for friendship, for peace, for good relations between India and Pakistan.
I would like to delve into periods of our history the world may be unfamiliar with. Before 1947, during the struggle for independence, everyone was fighting side by side, shoulder to shoulder. And the nation was eagerly waiting to celebrate the freedom, the joy of independence. Now, we could have a lengthy discussion on what led to the events that unfolded. But the fact remains that the policymakers of the time agreed to India's partition. And they agreed to the Muslim side's demand of carving out a separate nation, with hearts weighed down by grief and silent tears. Indians embraced this painful reality. However, what unfolded, this painful reality, however, what unfolded was an immediate heartbreaking saga of bloodshed. Trains filled with bloodied, wounded people and corpses started arriving from Pakistan. It was a harrowing sight. After getting their own way, we expected them to live and let live. We expected them to live and let live. And yet, they chose not to foster a harmonious coexistence. Time and again they decided to be at odds with India. They have waged a proxy war against us. Don't mistake this for ideology. What kind of ideology thrives on bloodshed and the export of terror? And we are not the sole victims of this menace. Wherever terror strikes in the world, the trail somehow leads to Pakistan. Let's take the September 11th attacks, for example. The main mastermind behind it, Osama bin Laden, where did he eventually emerge from? He'd taken refuge in Pakistan. The world has recognized that terrorist mindset are deeply rooted in Pakistan. Today, Pakistan. Today, it stands as an epicenter of turmoil, not just for India but for the world. And we have repeatedly asked them, what good can come from this path? What good can come from this path? We have urged them to abandon the path of state-sponsored terrorism for good. What do you hope to gain by surrendering your nation to lawless forces? I even personally traveled to Lahore in the pursuit of peace. When I became Prime Minister, I specially invited Pakistan to my swearing-in ceremony so we could turn over a new leaf. Yet, every noble attempt at fostering peace was met with hostility and betrayal. We sincerely hope that wisdom prevails upon them and they choose the path of peace. I believe even the people of Pakistan long for peace, because even they must be weary of this. They must have grown weary of relentless terror, where even innocent children are killed and countless lives are destroyed.
Is there some memorable stories from your past attempts to try
in India have a strong football culture? Our women's football team is performing really well, and the men's team is also making great progress. But if we talk about the past, back in the 1980s, one name that always stood out was Maradona. For that generation, he was seen as a true hero. And if you ask today's generation, they'll immediately mention Messi. Now that you've asked, another interesting memory just came to mind. There's a state in India called Madhya Pradesh, right in the center. There's a district called Shahadol, a completely tribal region where a large tribal community resides. I really from such communities, especially the self-help groups run by tribal women. So I decided to visit them and have a conversation. But when I got there, I noticed something fascinating. Around 80 to 100 young boys, kids, and even some old uniforms, standing together. Naturally, I walked over to them. So I asked them, "Where are you all from?" And they replied, "We're from Mini Brazil." I was surprised and said, "What do you mean by Mini Brazil?" They said, "That's what people call our village." Curious, I asked, "Why do they call it Mini Brazil?" They explained, "For 4 generations. Nearly have come from here. Our entire village is dedicated to football." They also told me when we host our annual football match, nearly 20 to 25,000 spectators come from nearby villages to watch. I see the growing craze for football in India these days. As a positive sign, because it not only fuels passion, but also builds true team spirit.
Yeah, football is one of the great sports that unites not just India, the whole world. And that just shows the power of what sport can do. You recently visited the United States and reinvigorated your friendship with Donald Trump.
Dedicated to America. His life was for his nation. His reflection showed his America First spirit, just as I believe in nation first. I stand for India first. And that's why we connect so well. These are the things that truly resonate. And I believe that across the world, politicians are covered so much by the media that people mostly perceive each other through its lens. People rarely get the chance to truly meet or personally know one another. And perhaps third-party intervention is the real cause of tensions. When I visited him in the White House for the first time, there was already a lot written about President Trump in the media. At that time, he was still new to office, and the world had a rather different perception of him. Even I had been briefed in many different ways before meeting him. But to my surprise, the very moment I stepped into the White House, he broke all formal protocols right away. And then, as he showed me around, I noticed something striking. He wasn't holding any notes or cue cards, nor was anyone accompanying him to assist. He pointed things out himself. "This is where Abraham Lincoln lived," he said. He even explained why the courtroom was designed so long. He would point at the table and tell me which president signed here and on what date. I found that incredibly impressive. It showed how much he honored the presidency and how respectful and deeply connected he was to America's history. I could feel that. And he spoke to me freely, discussing many things openly. That was my experience from our first meeting. Later, when his first term ended and President Biden won, 4 years passed. But during that time, whenever someone we both knew met him, and this must have happened dozens of times, he would say, "Modi is my friend, convey my regards." That kind of gesture is rare. Even though we didn't meet physically for years, Our direct and indirect communication, our closeness, and the trust between us remained unshaken.
He said that you're a much tougher, much better negotiator than he is. He said this recently when you visited. What do you think of him as a negotiator? And what do you think he meant about you being a great negotiator?
Now, that's not something I can comment on, since it's his graciousness and humility. It is with him that he openly appreciates me on various occasions and in different contexts. I always put my country's interests first. Forum, I speak up for India's interest, not to harm anyone, but in a positive manner. And because of that, no one takes offense. People know that if Modi is present, he will strongly advocate for these things. After all, the people of India have given me this responsibility. For me, my nation is my high command, and I will always honor their will.
You've also had a bunch of productive meetings with several other folks in your visits to the United States. Elon Musk, J.D. Vance, Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy. What are some things that stood out from those meetings? Maybe key takeaways, key memories.
Look, I can say this. I have observed President Trump both during his first term and now in his second run. This time, he seems far more prepared than before. He has a clear roadmap in his mind, with well-defined steps to lead him toward his goals. I also had the chance to meet members of his team, and I truly believe he has put together a strong, capable group. And with such a strong team, I feel they are fully capable of implementing President Trump's vision based on my interactions with them. I met several people, Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, and there was a family-like atmosphere. Everyone had come with their families. As for Elon Musk, I have known him since my time as chief minister. He was there with his family and children, so naturally the atmosphere felt warm and friendly. Of course, we had discussions and we talked about many different topics. Now, with his Doge mission, he is incredibly excited about how it's progressing.
Considered each other friends. How can that friendship be reinvigorated to help de-escalate some of the recent tensions and resume dialogue and cooperation with China?
Look, the relationship between India and China isn't something new. Both nations have ancient cultures and civilizations. Even in the modern world, they play a significant role. If you look at historical records, for centuries, India and China have learned from each other. Together, they have always contributed to the global good in some way. Old records suggest that at one alone accounted for more than 50% of the world's GDP. That's how massive India's contribution was. And I believe our ties have been extremely strong with deep cultural connections. If we look back centuries, there's no real history of conflict between us. It has always been about learning from each other and understanding one another. At one time, Buddhism had a profound influence in China, and that philosophy originally came from here. Our relationship should remain just as strong in the future. It should continue to grow. Of course, differences are natural when two neighboring countries exist. Occasional disagreements are bound to happen, even within a family. Not everything is always perfect. But our focus is to ensure that these differences don't turn into disputes. That's what we actively work toward. Instead of discord, we emphasize dialogue. Because only through dialogue can we build a stable, cooperative relationship that serves the best interests of both nations. It is true that there have been ongoing border disputes between us. And in 2020, the incidents along the border created significant tensions between our countries. However, after my recent meeting with President Xi, we have seen a return to normalcy at the border. We are now working to restore trust, enthusiasm, and energy will return. But of course, it will take some time since there's been a 5-year gap. Our cooperation isn't just beneficial, it's also essential for global stability and prosperity. And since the 21st century is Asia's century, we want India and China to compete in a healthy and natural way. Competition is not a bad thing, but it should never turn into conflict.
The world is worried about a brewing global war. The tensions between China and the United States, in Ukraine, Russia and Europe, and Israel, the Middle East. What can you say about how we in the 21st century can avoid a global war, avoid an escalation towards more conflict, more war?
Look, COVID exposed the limitations of every nation. No matter how much we consider ourselves as a great nation, no matter how progressive we think we are, or how scientifically advanced we believe we've become, everyone has their own way of looking at things. In the end, we all found ourselves on the same ground. Every country in the world faced this reality. At that time, it felt like the world would learn from it. Emerged after World War II, many thought something similar would happen post-COVID. But unfortunately, instead of moving towards peace,
it revealed the intensity of religious tensions in the region. You were, as you mentioned, Chief Minister of Gujarat at the time. Looking back, what lessons do you draw from that time? One should also say that India's independent Supreme Court upheld twice, in 12 and 22, that you had no involvement in the violence of the 2002 Gujarat riots. But I was wondering if you could speak to the broad lessons you draw from that time.
Look, regarding your first point, when you humbly said that you don't know what you're doing, that you're not good at this, I disagree and personally feel you've put in tremendous care. You've done extensive research and have dived deeply into every small detail. So, I think you've done very well. And all the efforts you've put in during our conversation and in all your conversations are appreciated. And rather than simply interview, feel there's genuine honesty in your sincere effort to uncover the truth. And for that sincere approach, I genuinely congratulate you.
Thank you.
Regarding the earlier events that you mentioned, like the 2002 riots in Gujarat, I'd like to paint you a clearer picture of the 12 to 15 months leading up to that, so you can fully understand the atmosphere of that time. For instance, take December 24, 1999, roughly 3 years earlier. An Indian flight from Kathmandu to Delhi was hijacked, redirected to Afghanistan, and landed in Kandahar. Hundreds of Indian passengers were held hostage. It caused massive turmoil across India. as people faced life and death uncertainty. Then, in the year 2000, the Red Fort in Delhi was attacked by terrorists. Yet another crisis struck the nation, intensifying fear and turmoil. On September 11, 2001, the Twin Towers in America faced a devastating terror attack, once again shocking the entire world. Because ultimately the people behind these attacks are driven by a similar mindset. Then, in October 2001, terrorists attacked the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly. Soon after, on December 13, 2001, India's parliament was targeted. Within just 8 to 10 months, these major global terrorist attacks took place. Violent incidents that led to bloodshed and the loss of innocent lives. In such a tense environment, even the smallest spark can ignite unrest. The situation had already become extremely volatile. In such times, suddenly, on October 7, 2001, I was given the responsibility of becoming Chief Minister of Gujarat. This was an enormous challenge. At that time, Gujarat was recovering from a devastating earthquake, the largest of the previous century, which had left thousands dead. My first task was overseeing the rehabilitation of survivors. This was a crucial task, and from day one after my oath, I immersed myself in it. I was a person who had absolutely no prior experience with government. I had never been part of any administration, never even served in government before. I had never contested an election, never even been a state representative. For the first time in my life, I had to face elections. On February 24, 2002, I became a state representative, an elected representative for the first time. And it was only around February 24th, 25th, or 26th that I stepped into the Gujarat Assembly for the very first time. On February 27, 2002, we were seated in the assembly for the budget session. And that same day, it had been just 3 days since I'd become a state representative, when suddenly the horrific Godhra incident occurred. It was a tragedy of unimaginable magnitude. People were burned alive. You can imagine, against the backdrop of incidents like the Kandahar hijacking, the attack on Parliament, or even 9/11, and then to have so many people killed and tense and volatile the situation was. Of course, this was tragic for everyone. Everyone prefers peace. The perception that these were the biggest riots ever is actually misinformation. If you review the data from before 2002, you'll see that Gujarat faced frequent riots, constantly being imposed somewhere. Communities like kite flying contests or even minor bicycle collisions. Before 2002, Gujarat witnessed over 250 significant riots. The riots in 1969 lasted nearly 6 months. So there was a long history, long before I was in the picture. But that one tragic incident in 2002 became a sparking point, leading some people towards violence. Yet, the judiciary thoroughly investigated the matter. At that time, our political opponents were in power, and naturally they wanted all allegations against us to stick. Despite their relentless efforts, the judiciary meticulously twice and ultimately found us completely innocent. Those who were truly from the courts. But the most important thing is, in Gujarat, where riots used to happen somewhere or the other every year, but after 2002, 22 years, there hasn't been a single major riot in Gujarat. Gujarat remains completely peaceful. Our approach has always been to avoid vote bank politics. Instead, our mantra has been together with everyone, development for all, trust from all, and efforts by everyone. We've shifted away from the politics of appeasement to the politics of aspiration. Because of this, anyone who wishes to contribute joins us willingly. We've continuously strived to turn Gujarat into a well-developed state. And today, Gujarat is actively contributing toward building a developed India as well.
A lot of people love you. I've got to hear from a lot of them. But there was also people who criticize you, including from the media. And folks in the media have criticized you over this 2002 Gujarat riots. What's your relationship like with criticism? How do you deal with critics? How do you deal with criticism coming from the media or in your own inner circle or just in your own life?
Look, regarding what you said about criticism and how I deal with it, if I had to summarize in one sentence, I welcome it. I have a strong belief that criticism is the soul of democracy. If democracy truly runs in your veins, you must embrace it. In our scriptures, it said, always keep your critics close. Critics should be your nearest companions because through genuine criticism, you can improve quickly and work democratically with better insights. In fact, I believe we should have more criticism, and it should be and well informed. But my real complaint is that nowadays what we see isn't real criticism. Genuine criticism requires thorough study, in-depth research, and careful analysis. It demands finding the truth from falsehoods. Today, people look for shortcuts, avoid proper research, and skip the step of identifying genuine weaknesses. They jump straight to accusations. There's a big difference between the references you're giving. They are allegations, not criticism. For a strong democracy, genuine criticism is necessary. Allegations benefit no one. They just cause unnecessary conflicts. That's why I always welcome criticism openly. And whenever false accusations arise, I calmly continue serving my country with complete dedication.
Yeah, the thing you speak of are great journalism. And unfortunately, in modern day, a lot of journalists seek clickbait headlines, make accusations because they operate under incentive because they want the headline, the cheap shot. I think there is a need to journalism, and that requires deep understanding. And it saddens me how often one of the reasons, I don't think I'm very good at this, but one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you is because I see enough high effort, deep dive research. I don't know how many books I've read. I've read a lot in preparing just to experience, just to try to understand. It requires a lot of preparation, a lot of work, and I would love to see great journalists do that more. And from that place, you can criticize. From that place, you can really investigate the complexity of the situation of people in power, their strengths, their flaws, the mistakes they have made. But that requires great, great, great preparation. So I wish there was more of that, of great journalism.
Yes, clear, well-directed, and specific criticism genuinely helps in the process of effective policy making. It leads to a clear-cut policy vision. I specifically pay close attention to such constructive criticism. In fact, I actively welcome it. Regarding your point about journalistic headlines, if someone's attracted by catchy headlines or plays with words, I honestly mind that much. But when there's a deliberate agenda behind the action, and the truth is deliberately ignored, that can cause damage that lasts for decades. If someone focuses on pleasing their readers or viewers with attractive headlines, maybe we can compromise a little. But if there's a hidden intentionally twisted to serve an agenda, that's a serious issue worth worrying about.
And in that,
I remember once in London, I decided to give a speech at an event organized by a Gujarati newspaper there. So during my speech, I casually said, since it was an event attended by journalists, what kind of journalism should we have? Should it be like a fly or a bee? I explained. A fly sits on dirt and spreads the dirt around. But a bee lands on flowers, collects nectar, and then shares them. Yet, if something wrong occurs, the bee can sting so powerfully that you'd have to hide your face for 3 days straight. However, some people selectively picked up just half of my analogy and created a huge controversy out of it. Honestly, was I being negative about anyone? Not at all. I was simply highlighting the incredible strength of a bee, that even its small sting can leave such an impact that can make someone hide their face for days. You can't show your face. That's the power journalism should have. Even those not directly benefiting never feel left out or treated unfairly, knowing they too will benefit in due course. This fosters a deep sense of trust, and trust is the cornerstone of my governance model. Secondly, my governance flows beyond the ebb and flow of elections. My governance is rooted in the people, not the polls. It is committed to the well-being of my citizens and the greater good of the nation. As you may know, I had once set out on a quest for spiritual awakening. So now I revere my nation as the divine itself, and I now revere the people as a manifestation of the divine. Like a devoted priest, my heart is set on serving the people. I don't distance myself from the people. I live among them as one of them. And I tell everyone I work with, if you work hard, I will work harder. This, and it builds trust. Besides, I have no conflicts of this, and it builds trust. Besides, I have no conflicts of interest. I have no friends or relatives who stand to gain from the position I hold. The common man appreciates this lack of vested interests. And that's probably just one reason. Moreover, I come from a party with millions of dedicated volunteers. Volunteers who are completely devoted to the welfare of India and its citizens. They have had no stake whatsoever in politics. They've held no title, no stake whatsoever in politics. They've held no title, nor strayed where of volunteers who work tirelessly. I am proud to belong to the world's largest political party, and it's not widely recognized and valued by the community. It fortifies people echoed in the election. I never tallied our election triumphs, but we have had people in political parties has the power to leave the entire world in awe. My country has more than 900 round-the-clock news channels. There are over 5,000 newspapers published daily. They each play a role in upholding democracy in their own way. Even the humblest villages here embrace technology with remarkable swiftness. While some other countries take months to declare election results, we announced the results within a day, despite the mind-boggling number of voters. And you were spot on in saying that even the remotest villages have polling stations. We even use helicopters to transport polling stations. I believe Arunachal Pradesh instituted polling booth on record. In Gujarat, a polling booth was set up in the Gir forest for just one voter, who was in the middle of nowhere, but we ensured a polling booth was set up for them. All I mean to say is that we truly leave no stone unturned in our unwavering commitment to strengthening democracy, ensuring that we are always fully prepared and election ready, no matter the circumstances. I firmly believe that India's Election Commission sets a global standard as a benchmark for conducting free and fair elections. It is the apex decision maker. This in itself is such a remarkable story that the world's top universities should consider it a case study. They should analyze the management behind it as a valuable learning example. Given the sheer number of voters, can you truly grasp the immense depth of political awareness? All of this will make for an excellent case study for the younger generation worldwide.
To me, I love democracy. This is one of the main reasons I love the United States. There's just nothing quite as beautiful as democracy when it functions in India. You know, like you said, 900 million people registered to vote. It really is a case study. It's beautiful to see that many people come together willingly, passionately casting a vote for some person to represent them. Like they're putting their heart in that. It's really important for a person to feel like their voice is going to be heard. Beautiful. Speaking of which, you are loved by a lot of people. You are one of the most powerful humans in the world. Do you sometimes think about whether this much power has a corrupting effect on your mind? Especially across the many years that you've been in power.
I don't think the word powerful quite reflects the journey of my life. I can never claim to be powerful, for all I am is a humble servant. I even identify myself as not the Prime Minister, but the Prime Servant. And service is the guiding principle of my work ethic. As far as power is concerned, it is something I have never bothered about. I entered politics not to play power games, but to serve, rather than seeking power. I stay committed to doing and getting work done. I am more focused on productivity than power. I have always dedicated myself to serving the people. I have always devoted myself to bringing about a positive change in their lives.
Like you mentioned, you give your whole soul to your work. You ever get lonely?
Look, I never experienced loneliness because I am an ardent believer in the philosophy of 1+1. And this philosophy of 1+1 is aligned with my moral compass. And whenever I am asked to elaborate on this outlook, I say the first one represents Modi and the other one represents the Almighty. For he is always there to keep. This is just how I function. Having of Swami Vivekananda, I firmly believe that service to mankind is service to God. For me, the nation itself is divine, is a reflection of the divine. I walk this path with the conviction that serving the people is serving the divine. That's why the very notion of When I look at our country's soldiers, I think about how many hours someone spends working tirelessly in snow, deserts, or even underwater day and night. When I see a laborer, I think about how hard they're working. I always think about how hard our mothers and sisters work in every family for the happiness of the family. They're the first to wake up and the last to go to bed, taking care of everyone in the family, while also managing social responsibilities. Thinking of all this, I'm in awe of how hard people work. So I think, how can I sleep? How can I relax? So naturally, the motivation is right in front of my eyes. Those very things around me keep me motivated. Secondly, my responsibilities keep pushing me forward. The responsibilities entrusted to me by my fellow citizens always remind me that I'm not here to enjoy privileges. I will always give it my absolute best. Perhaps there are a couple of things I may not accomplish, but there will never be a lack of effort or hard work from me. And when I was campaigning in 2014, I had made a promise first in Gujarat and later across India. I promised my fellow citizens that I will never fall behind in hard work for my country. Secondly, I promised I would never act with bad intentions. And thirdly, I vowed I'd never do anything for personal gain. Today, it's been 24 years, for such a long period. The people have entrusted me as head of government. I've continuously held myself to these three standards, and I still live by them today. My inspiration comes from serving 1.4 billion people, from understanding and fulfilling their aspirations, and addressing their needs. I'm always determined to do as much as I can, work as hard as possible. Even today, my energy remains